Welcome back to NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen as we hear coffee shop talk from a group of beef producers just like you and me. We've had a great discussion about the markets, and I want to follow that discussion up with the discussion around expansion. Kevin, good news I heard at NCBA convention about weather, and particularly for those of you in the western United States. Sounds like it's conducive to expansion. What are you doing and thinking about in your own operation?
On our own operation, as everyone knows, the West Coast has been in a severe drought the last 4 years, and so I'm excited and my family's excited. We have the opportunity now with this El Nino effect. We're back to a normal year, and we're retaining heifers and trying to grow our cow herd just as quickly as we can, because even though the market volatility and it's not as high as it once was with record highs, it's still a pretty good market and there's profitability there. So we're expanding our operation just as much as Mother Nature will let us.
And Clint, you talk to a lot of cow-calf producers across the Midwest. What are you seeing in terms of their views towards expansion?
We see tremendous herd expansion in the southern plains and through the fescue belt. My wife and I recently just purchased a new ranch, and we've populated it. We have a bright future in agriculture, we believe, and in the beef business. I work with a large number of heifer developers that every year their business is to take quality heifers from weaned heifer calves and move them into the bred market. And we saw a tremendous uptake in their growth. Of course, the market pushed them that way and asked them to do that. Now, just like John said, there's been some challenges on the buyer side. That bred heifer market pulled way back this fall compared to a year ago. Probably somewhere in the range of 30 to 40% from one price category to another. But one of the things that we saw and that I believe in, of course, I believe in better quality beef and adding value through that. We're seeing a return from, especially at these prices, where some of the older cows, some of the cows that probably we've hung on to a little too long in this upswing in prices, are going to get replaced with some of these younger females that are a little better genetically. And I see a lot of change in the cow herd coming there, and hopefully on the positive side.
You bet. I want to follow that up in a little bit. But Dawn, what do you perceive some of the barriers are to cow herd expansion?
I know in our area in particular, and I think this is more nationwide even, we run into a real limitation for grass to graze those mama cows. There's been a lot of land tore up in our country, and it grows great corn, or soybeans or whatever it is. And so, whether it's different crops out in Kevin's country or the corn and soy in our country, pasture becomes a limitation in a big way. And so then, can you find a spot to dry lot, and do you want to deal with the regulations and work and chores and daily feeding that comes with that? In addition, it's a whole different management process for that mother cow to get the good quality beef that we want.
Yeah. John, we talk a lot about excess feedlot capacity. I mean, do you think this is one of the things that folks can do, or have you had any experience with some of your feedlot friends dry lotting cows?
I'm familiar with it. We have not chosen to go down that path. We try to focus on what we think we're pretty good at, and that's feeding, taking these good feeder cattle and optimizing their performance as long as we have them. I think as far as the expansion, though, from our perspective, we're excited about it because we're going to have more cattle to look at. And as we go through, we talked earlier, as we go through sort of a reduced number of feeder cattle, that puts extra stress on our piece of it. But more cattle, better cattle, we're excited about that, and we think that it's going to afford us some opportunities as long as we stay focused on the risk associated with it. We're going to have to do a lot more risk mitigation. Where we can't assume anything based on the volatility in the market.
Right.
We've got to be able to look at cattle and say, okay, what kind of mitigation of risk strategy can we put in place that allows us, because we're margin operators. Right. We don't have the benefit of many of the cow-calf operations, and so we've got a limited time that we have these cattle, and we've got to be careful about that investment and optimize their performance. And if all those things come together, we're fairly optimistic about the next few years from a cattle feeding perspective.
But you all talk about more cattle, and I want to be a devil's advocate for just a moment, because I talk to people at NCBA convention and they're like, why do we have to expand the cow herd? Well, you know, I mean, we're going to expand the cow herd and we're going to have more product and prices are going to even be lower. So, John, reference that. I mean, what role does demand play and what are the risks involved in growing a cow herd and not having people who are willing and able to consume the product?
Very good question and a good point. And as you know, we worked on the long-range plan, and really one of our goals in that for our entire beef industry is to increase demand. And so when we look at more supply, you know, supply is just, you got to be careful when you look at supply and equate that as demand, because it's not. You know, we have to figure out how do we do a better job getting to that consumer and having that consumer understand the quality attributes that are associated with our product. And there's a lot of opportunity with that. These great folks here, if we can get connected and tell a story and we can increase the trust of the product we're producing, there is a lot of opportunity to increase that demand, even with more supply. Market access is another one where we have been restricted. We open up some markets and all of a sudden the dynamics change, and the possibility of that is very good. We're very optimistic that we're close on a lot of things. We've had some trade things that have happened, the good work that the Trade Association has done around opening some access and free trade. Those are pretty nice silver linings to the clouds we see sometimes.
Yeah, and Kevin, I wanted to follow up. You've been front and center in a lot of those policy discussions. What is your sense of the long-term prospects of trade, and how much of it is going to be policy related? How much of it is going to be currency related?
Well, both of those are great points. So NCBA in the long-range plan for the cattle industry and the beef industry, trade is at the top of both the goals for that and NCBA strategy. So we have to work on the access and increasing our exports, because more than 95% of our potential consumers live outside the borders of the United States. People have to realize that. So we have to go and get that access and create that demand overseas. That's a huge component of our future success. So the Trans-Pacific Partnership Trade Agreement is in the hands of the administration in the White House, and it's going to be sent to Congress sometime this year. And it's important, I mean really important to those of us all the way back at the ranch to have that agreement signed and approved by Congress so we can have easier access into our #1 trading partner for beef in Japan, for example, and it just goes right down the list for future success.
Great perspective, guys. Thank you. Thanks so much for being with us, and don't go away. We'll have a closer look at current issues and concerns in the beef cattle business when we return. Stay with us.